Slasher movies are without a doubt the most popular subgenre in horror, and for good reason. From creepy phone calls coming from inside the house to hormonal teens meeting the business end of a machete, slashers tap into the macabre in all of us. But what would these films be without a complex villain to make our skin crawl? Today, on Graveyard Shift Ranked, the top 10 killers in slasher movie history. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to Graveyard Shift to stay up to date on all things horror. Also known as the Hell Priest, Pinhead is the leader of the Cenobites, a race of demonic creatures summoned from an extra-dimensional realm of hell by anyone who solves their intricate puzzle boxes. Once summoned, Pinhead subjects his victims to experimental sadomasochistic punishment, mutilating them with hooks and chains that he controls with his mind. Pinhead begins as an angel of death, capable of evil and destruction beyond our understanding, but equipped with his own restraint and moral code. However, as the Hellraiser series continues, the Pope of Hell embraces chaos and engages in random killing sprees, reincarnating some of his victims as more Cenobite followers against their will. Drawing inspiration from Christopher Lee's portrayal as Count Dracula, Clive Barker's eloquent depiction of the character makes a complete departure from the genre's silent killer trope, but spanning 10 films, a slew of comics, and a series of novels, including a crossover with Sherlock Holmes. Pinhead has more than earned himself a spot in the Slasher Killer Hall of Fame. From the Phantasm franchise, the Tall Man originates as a mild-mannered 19th century mortician named Jebediah Morningside, who develops an obsession with bringing the afterlife to our reality, and eventually constructs a machine that allows him to travel through space and time. Passing through his portal imbues Morningside with a superhuman strength, telekinesis, and shape-shifting abilities, rebirthing himself as the statuesque Tall Man. The Tall Man terrorizes anyone that enters his domain through the use of murderous floating spheres, known as sentinels, and transforms the corpses of his victims into reanimated, brainless henchmen called lurkers. If that's not horrifying enough, the Tall Man has proven impossible to kill permanently, with limbs that mutate into pestilent insect-like creatures when severed from his body. Angus Scrimm's exemplary turn as the lumbering villain cemented himself and the character as one of the most indelible adversaries in the pantheon of horror. The character spawned 5 films, spanning over 40 years. The fact that audiences couldn't get enough of this scowling madman from another dimension is proof enough of his rightful place on this list. To say nothing to the fact that not many characters on this list have a catchphrase. Boy. Before he became the hook-wielding menace with an allure for bees, Daniel Robitel started as an African-American painter who was brutally murdered for being in a forbidden interracial love affair with a landowner's daughter in the 19th century. This horrific crime turned this Tony Todd-portrayed character into a vengeful spirit that slaughters anyone who summons him by saying his name, Candyman, in the mirror 5 times. Now, the Candyman is driven by his need to sustain his legacy, killing those who doubt his existence and shedding the blood of innocence to keep his name alive. The Candyman film franchise might not have lasted as long as we all would have wanted, with only 3 films in the initial run of the franchise, but there's still hope on the horizon with the newly minted Jordan Peele-produced Blumhouse reboot to the adventures of the vengeful-fueled Boogeyman. John Kramer starts the Saw series as a former civil engineer dying from an inoperable brain tumor caused by colon cancer. He develops a new appreciation for life after a failed suicide attempt and dedicates this little time he has left to inspire the same appreciation in others. This selfless act turns malicious as he tests the victim's will to live through deadly games that often force his subjects to inflict pain on themselves in order to survive. Tobin Bell's terrifying portrayal as the dying cancer patient with a nefarious agenda broke barriers on how we understood horror killers. Bell has described his character's role as a detail-oriented scientist who thinks very specifically and very pragmatically, while the producers of Saw see him as a vigilante who believes he's making a difference. Despite meeting his demise in just the 3rd installment of Saw, Jigsaw's legacy extends beyond the grave, with intricate planning and accomplices carrying the torch long after his death. The original Psycho himself, who defined the slasher genre nearly 20 years before its inception, suffered emotional abuse as a child by his overbearing mother, and would later murder her and her lover out of jealous rage. The shock and guilt of killing his own mother causes Norman to develop a split personality disorder, assuming her identity to keep her alive. Unlike the other killers on this list, Norman Bates doesn't seek out victims, but falls into fits of violent rage under the guise of his mother whenever he feels threatened or attracted to a woman, often targeting weary travelers foolish enough to stay at the Bates Motel. Loosely based off of real-life murderer Ed Gein and Castle of Frankenstein publisher Calvin Beck, Norman Bates ranks as the second greatest villain on the American Film Institute's list of 100 greatest film heroes and villains, just behind Hannibal Lecter. Anthony Perkins' groundbreaking performance not only spawned 3 sequels, a remake, and the hit prequel series Bates Motel, but also paved the way for the emergence of the slasher genre. More collective than killer, Ghostface is made up of a series of copycat murderers with one common goal: ruin Sidney Prescott's life. Each installment of the Scream franchise sees a new psychopath donning the ghost white mask in order to terrorize Prescott and kill anyone close to her in a series of revenge plots ranging from mommy issues to jealous family members. The culmination of the slasher genre, Ghostface often taunts and punishes his victims for their lack of horror trivia knowledge. Each killing spree ends with the death of Ghostface before a new copycat picks up the mantle in the next installment. The iconic Ghostface mask was first developed for novelty stores in 1991 by Fun World employee Bridget Slayton and dubbed the Peanut-Eyed Ghost. Wes Craven later obtained the rights to the mask after Scream producer Marianne Maddalena discovered it inside the house while location scouting. Since its first appearance in 1996, Ghostface had become one of the most sold Halloween costumes in the United States to date and will reappear in the 5th installment of Scream to be released in 2022. Before becoming the actual stuff of nightmares, the son of 100 homicidal maniacs was a child murderer in Springwood, Ohio, until the parents of his victims exacted their revenge by burning him alive. Fueled by the town's memories and fear of him, Krueger's spirit returns to stalk and prey on his victims in their most vulnerable state, while they're sleeping. Freddy haunts the children of Elm Street in their dream state, often taunting them in a deadly game of cat and mouse before tearing them to shreds with his notorious bladed glove, killing them in their dreams and in real life. Spanning 9 films, a television series, novels, comic books, multiple crossovers,
forever!
Robert Englund's turn as the sharp-tongued Springwood slasher generated a massive cult following and chiseled Freddy Krueger on the Mount Rushmore of slasher killers. When he's not dancing in the middle of the road with a chainsaw, the mentally unstable mass murderer resides in Texas, where he assists his cannibalistic family in kidnapping, murdering, and feasting on unsuspecting travelers. His passion for cosplay garners him the nickname Leatherface, as he frequently wears the faces of his victims as masks after massacring them. While Leatherface is the first to encompass the hulking, masked, silent killer stereotype slasher movies have come to be known for, he is not nearly as evil as some of his successors. At his heart, Leatherface is a fully grown child scared of the outside world and only kills because he's under the control of his manipulative family and wants to protect his home, although he is never considered the main antagonist due to acting under family's orders. Leatherface is the only character to appear in every installment of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, covering 8 films, comics, and a video game adaptation. Similar to Norman Bates, the character is said to be largely inspired by Ed Gein, who was also known to wear the human faces of his victims like masks. Isn't that lovely? Before he donned the iconic hockey mask, and way before he went to space, the boy who drowned at Camp Crystal Lake in the summer of 1958 returned over 20 years later to exact his revenge on the counselor who killed his mother on what is now every horror fan's second favorite holiday, Friday the 13th. Since then, he has been killed and resurrected twice, went to hell and back, and has gone toe-to-toe with Elm Street's Freddy Krueger, rendering him virtually indestructible, only rivaled by maybe Freddy or Pinhead in terms of thrill of the kill. Jason often ditches his quintessential machete for something more creative, like beating a co-ed in a sleeping bag against a tree or literally punching a guy's head off his body. Today, Jason Voorhees lives in the woods surrounding Crystal Lake and indiscriminately slaughters anyone who trespasses. While Jason was not originally intended to carry the Friday the 13th series as the lead antagonist, his meteoric rise to the top and mark on American pop culture have been undeniable. Not only has he carried 12 films, the character has also appeared in 5 video games, various comic books, and has inspired multiple horror punk bands. Despite the fact he has not graced audiences with a film appearance in over a decade, Jason's stranglehold as an American cultural icon solidifies his ranking in our number 2 spot. The creme de la creme of slasher killers, the boogeyman himself started out as a troubled young boy who murders his own sister on Halloween night, only to return to his home 15 years later to go on a killing spree. Although he primarily targets babysitters, and Laurie Strode specifically, Michael's malevolence knows no bounds as he butchers anyone who gets in his way, including members of the cult created to worship him. Often referred to as the Shape, due to his towering size and knack for always being right behind you despite never breaking a meandering stride, what makes Michael Myers so menacing is his lack of motive. With the blackest eyes, he is evil incarnate. With the release of 2018's Halloween turning the franchise into the most successful slasher series in American cinema, it's no wonder how Michael received top billing on this list. Since his inception in 1978, the character has laid down the foundation for what would become modern-day slasher films and influenced dozens of spin-off characters and franchises, including a majority of the contenders in this ranking, and shows no sign of stopping. Fans may look forward to 2 additional installments featuring Michael, titled Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, slated for release on October 2021 and 2022 respectively. And, on that note, like, comment, and subscribe to The Graveyard Shift. Check back next time to find out what spooky subjects we'll tackle next on Graveyard Shift Ranked.